Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am Maria, in case you're new here. I design, create and sell my own jewelry, beaded jewelry to be exact, and I also have a second shop for checked glass beads. You can find both my shops down in the description box and you can find all the links to my social media. Today I want to show you how to bead my Philippa earrings. They are still pretty new. I think I've added them to my shop about 2 months ago. In between I did some bead embroidery and was on vacation, so time passes pretty quickly, but I promise to provide a tutorial for these earrings, and in a few weeks, because I still need a little more time, I will also provide a download over in my Etsy shop for color information in case you're interested in making the same earrings that I personally sell in my shop. This is the option with green and orange beads, and also in the clip beforehand you saw some other color variations. I currently wear the sky blue option. That are those. They are this big, quite dangly also. Also the little crystal bead in the middle, it is dangling too, it's not that stiff, so it has also a little movement in there. Pretty fun earrings for the summer season if you ask me. And today I want to show you how to make these. I would say that they are pretty easy to make. If you are a beginner beader and you want to try out beading for the first time, you can try it with this design, but you will need quite some different bead types. So maybe it's not the best project for you, but if you really like the look and the design of these earrings, don't let that stop you. I'm sure that you will be able to find the beads that you need. So before we hop right into the process of beading these earrings, let me show you what you need. As per usual, I will make these earrings with brass supplies, but you of course can choose your own supplies, so maybe use gold-plated or silver-plated supplies if you prefer that color. So these are circular findings of a diameter of 1.6 centimeters. Of course you can make smaller or bigger earrings, but please consider that you will need to adjust your bead numbers or your bead count. And I'm not able to tell you what the appropriate bead count is because I only make these earrings in this size. So if you want to have it easy, please just get findings in the size of 1.6 centimeters. Then you will need earring hooks. I will use brass ones. I will use Miyuki beading thread in the champagne color because it very well matches the brass color of my findings. If you are going for silver plated supplies, you can use the silvery color. It also matches quite nicely. So this is the thread. It's a nylon thread. It's a thicker one. It's not quite as thin as nylon thread. Then you will need a beading needle. This is a pony black needle in the size 12. It works just fine with the usual 11/0 and 15/0 Miyuki beads. The first row that we will bead around the finding is made of Delica beads 11/0. This is a light pink shade. Please be aware that I will not share my color codes in this video. If you want to use the exact same beads and colors that I use for my earrings, please consider later on getting the download to support my channel and my business. I always note down in the description how many color combinations you will get, and I will also show the product photos for the concerning earring so that you know exactly how the earring will look in the end. Then next I use 3 different shades of Miyuki round beads 15/0. Also I use 4mm pressed check beads. And I also use 3 different bead types in the golden color, matching my brass findings. So this is Miyuki Rounds 15-0. Then we have Toho Demi Rounds 11-0. And also Toho Demi Rounds 8-0. And then we need some kind of crystal bead to place in the middle. These are 6mm crystal beads. There are all kinds of different glass crystal beads out there, so just get some that you really like. And the ones that I use, they are not quite round. They are more like a pine cone shape, and they are super sparkly, as you can see. So these are pretty much all the beads that you need. As you can see, they are quite different. There are 9 different beads that you would need if you want to make these earrings exactly as I do. So since this design is quite easy to make, you don't really need any knowledge about basic beading techniques. We will use the brick stitch technique. You can look it up on my channel if you're interested, but you really don't need to. You can just follow along what I do and you will be fine. So first let's cut the thread. You won't need quite 2 arm lengths, probably 1.5 is more than enough. And then we will tie a double knot on our finding. Leave some tail thread so that you can weave it in later on and place some more knots to make it all secure. We start beading this earring by placing 1 row of 30 beads around this finding by using the brick stitch. For this, you pick up 2 delica beads, you push them down onto that finding, and you go from the back to the front through both beads, and you pull your thread through, and then the beads sit at an angle next to each other. And then you go back up through that second bead. Always hold on tight so that they don't get loose. And this is the start of your earring. Now we add single beads to this row. You pick up a bead, you push it down, you go from the back to the front and up again through that bead. You place that bead pretty close to the other beads, but you don't really need them to sit super tightly next to each other. You only need 30 beads in your very first row. You don't want more, so I would recommend you to space them out a tiny little bit so that it's all nice and even in the end. And you continue. You pick up the next bead, you push it down, go from the back to the front through that finding and up through that bead, and you pull through. And again, you pick up a bead, push it down, back to the front, up through that bead, and you pull through. Just like that. And now you will continue doing this until you have 30 beads in this row. As you can see, I'm done with the very first row. Pretty much all the beads are nicely spaced out. It's nice and even, and the next thing that we need to do is we need to connect the beginning and the end of this bead row. And this is easily done by going through the very first bead to the back and then to the front again through that finding and up again through that same bead. And there you have it, your very first row. Next we will add the arches and the 4mm beads. So I'm talking about these arches with the 4mm bead in the center. That's the next step that we will do. We will go around the whole row one time and we will add all these beads in one go. For the slight color gradient I have in this design, I usually pick up 2 beads of the first color, 2 beads of the second color, and then 1 bead of the third color, so that you have 5 15 ohm Miyuki round beads on your needle. And then you also pick up 1 4mm bead. Then you stay in the front of that finding and you go back down through the bead on the right hand side of that bead you're coming currently out of. You pull nice and tight and you want to place your tiny little seed beads on the left side of that larger 4mm bead. Then you go up through that next bead on the right hand side, and now we add the next 5 beads. So you pick up 2 beads of your first color, 2 beads of the second color, and 1 bead of that third color, and you go back down with that 4mm bead and that delica bead down below, and you stay at the front of your finding. Just like this. Then you go up again on the left side of that 4mm bead through that delica bead and those 15 beads until you're coming out of that last 15 bead. And now you close that arch. You pick up 1 15 bead of your third color, 1 15 bead in the golden color, but of course you don't have to. You can stick to your third color or choose any other color really. And then you pick up another 15 bead, in my case that's the third color, so that you have 3 15-ohs on your needle. And you go all the way back down on the right hand side of that arch. All the way down to that finding, so also through that delica bead. So that's the first one. Now we do this 9 more times. So you go up through that delica bead on the right hand side and you do it over again. You pick up 5 Miyuki round beads and a 4mm bead. And go back down through that next bead on the right hand side. You stay at the front, back up through that next bead, you pick up 5 more beads, and you go back down all the way to the finding through that 4mm bead. Then you go back up all the way on the left hand side. And you pick up 3 more beads to fill in that arch. And then you go back down all the way on the right hand side. So let's check that earring again. As you can see, I've added a jump ring and my earring hook to one of those peaks right above those arches. In order for me to do so, you need to use at least a demi round 11/0, because oftentimes the jump rings that you will use will be too thick to use them on a 15/0 Miyuki bead, especially with a metallic coating. So I would recommend to you to use a demi round 11/0, maybe in the same shade as your 15/0s you place on top of those arches, so that you can then place your jump ring right through it. This is how I do it. I like this way very much. The next group of 3 beads, I will replace the middle 15/0 Miyuki bead with a demi round 11/0. So again, you pick up 5 beads. And a 4mm bead. You go down. Because this will be the arch where we will add the earring hook, this is also the position where we want to add that dangly crystal bead. So for this I pick up 4 15/0 beads, 3rd color, 2nd color, 1st color and a golden bead. Then I will pick up the crystal bead and another 15/0 Miyuki bead in the golden shade. You push it all the way to the finding, like this. And just the way we do it with fringes, we will skip the very last bead on our thread and you will go back up through all the other beads, so the crystal bead and those 15/0 beads, and you will go to the back of your finding. Hold on tight. Then you can turn it over and you go back up through that Miyuki bead, which is placed right below that 4mm bead. So now we're coming out of that bead right below that 4mm bead. So because we want to add the right hand side of that arch, we go down through that next delica bead at the back of your finding and you go back up through that same bead on the front of your finding. Just like that. You pick up your 5 beads and you go back down that 4mm bead to that finding. You go back up on the left hand side. And you pick up one 15/0 bead, one 11/0 demi round, and one 15/0 bead. And there you have it. This is the arch where you will later on place your jump ring and your earring hook. And that dangly bead will be all nice and pretty right in the center of your earring. The main part is all done. And now we need to add those little decorative bridges and peaks in between these. So we will fill in the gaps in between those arches. So for this you can go up to that delica bead on the left hand side and the 4mm bead. And you go back down only one of those 15/0 beads. So you skip that group of 3 beads right on the top and you go through the very first or last, depends on which direction you're looking, but you only go through one 15/0 bead of that group of 5 beads you added earlier. So that it looks like this. Now you will pick up 3 15/0 beads. For me it's the 3rd color. And you go up at the same spot on the opposite side of that gap. Basically you're passing through the last 3 15/0 beads of that left hand side of that arch. And you place them in between those 2 tips. Please don't pull too hard, you really don't want much thread tension in there. They need to be nice and loose. You don't want to twist these arches in some kind of way. So you just want to place the beads in between, nothing more. Then you go down the next 2 beads again. And you place the next group of 3 beads. So when you reach the arch where you later on want to add that jump ring onto, you need to pay attention to the center bead at the top. That is the demi round that we added earlier, and we want to skip that bead just to be sure that you will have enough space for your jump ring in there, and we don't really need to go through it with the thread again. So you pick up 3 beads again. And you will skip the center bead on top of that 4mm bead. Just like that. You skip it and you will place the demi round on top of that thread so that it's sticking out. Of course, this time you need to pull a little so that it's tight enough so that this bead can sit on top of the thread. Then we continue. You pick up 3 beads again. And again. We've added all these beaded bridges now, and now we will place the decorative peaks on top. So you go to your very first bridge and you pass through the first bead of that bead group of 3. You pick up an 11-0 demi round, an 8-0 and another 11-0, so that you have 3 beads on your needle. You skip the center bead of that bead bridge and you pass through the 3rd bead of that bead bridge. Just like that. You adjust your beads a little bit. And there you have that peak. And you go to the next spot. Always pay attention to your thread tension. You don't want it to be too tight. You only want your beads to sit properly on each other. You pass through the first bead again. You pick up an 11-0 demi round, an 8-0 and an 11-0. And you pass through the 3rd bead again and the next few 15-0 beads which are in that arch. You pull a little bit, just so much that these peaks sit where they should be. And you continue. If it feels a little bit too tight in your tiny seed beads, you may want to switch to a needle of the size 10. But usually I don't need to do this, so I will just keep on going with my size 12. We're approaching the demi round which sticks out so that you can add that jump ring. We will skip it again. So skip it. Just like that. Make sure that it sticks out. And you go through that first bead of that bead bridge again. Pick up your beads and pass through that 3rd bead of that bead bridge. And the next few beads which are placed in that arch. I've added all the peaks. I'm coming out of that third bead of that bead bridge, and now it's time to secure the thread. So for this I'm going back down to the finding all the way. So for that I'm going back down to the finding, but first I will switch my needle to a size 10 and you pull your thread all the way through. Pull tight enough so that the last peak is positioned properly. And now I will use the bead bridges along that finding to tie some knots. So with this thread I will go to the left side, because this thread, the tail thread, I will continue with this one on the right hand side. So I don't want to place more than one knot in one delicate bead. So you pass through under that next bead bridge on the left hand side, and you have this little loop and you tie a knot with it, and this way you can go up with the next delicate bead and you will pull that knot into the delicate bead and hide it. Just like that. Turn it over, you will continue on the left hand side. Again, you will go back down through that next delicate bead and you will use the next thread bridge to tie another knot. And you will go up through the delicate bead on top. And then I usually place a third knot for the working thread. Go up again through the delicate bead, pull in that knot and go back down again through the next one. Now it's nice and secure and we can cut the first end of the thread. Now to secure the tail thread, you thread your size 10 needle again. Now you go up through the bead where you first placed that double knot, so the very first bead that you placed on that finding, because we want to make sure that no one can see that double knot. And now we continue towards the right hand side. You go down through that next delicate bead and we place another knot with the help of that next thread bridge. You go up again, pull in that knot, and you go back down through the next one. And that's it. I have these super tiny jump rings. I think they are only 3 millimeter wide. And I place them right with the help of that demi-round. Take your earring hook. There it is. So cute. Let me know what you think and whether you will try this design. But I'm very happy with these and I love these. They are not super hard to make, which is nice. Yeah, and it's a good beginner project, you know, to get to know all the different beads out there and try something fun. Okay, about that download. I will release the download a little later, a few weeks later than this video. If you're interested in it, please stay tuned. I will link it down below in the description box and I will pin a comment when it's available. My downloads usually include bead graphs, so for you to color them in if you want to, and as a help where to place which bead and which color. And it also includes at least 10 sets of different color variations of that certain earring design. I plan to have 2 different earring designs included in this download. So one is of course the Philippa earring I just showed you, and also the Horea hoop earring. This is, as I said, a hoop earring, but the design is quite the same. And because they are so similar, I want to provide both bead graphs for you. And you can use the color information for both of these designs, which is quite handy. But you can find all the information also in the description when it becomes available, so maybe check it out, see whether you could use this information. I don't sell seed beads, so I don't sell either round or cylindric beads right now. I only sell check glass beads, which are the 4 millimeter beads in the middle. I always note down my own IDs, but of course you can use different check glass beads. So when you're going out shopping for your beads that you want to get, just get whatever you like. I do understand if the shipping prices are too high for you and you don't want to pay for it. I'm sorry, I do understand, but sadly there's nothing I can change about it. I have considered and thought about adding seed beads to my shop, but because it is all quite expensive to do and to buy large quantities, right now I'm only focusing on check glass beads, which I can get in my area here where I live. Okay, I hope that you found this tutorial helpful. Stay tuned for the download. I will also mention it in one of the upcoming vlogs, either when I'm working on it or when it becomes available. If you would like to see more about beading, you can check out my basic beading technique videos or the other beading tutorials I have here on my channel. But I also post small handmade business vlogs in case you want to have a look on what's going on behind the scenes. This is it for now. If you like this video, please leave a like, maybe leave a comment and feedback. And please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today and thank you for spending your time with me. I hope you have a wonderful day and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye!